behalf of the President of the United States Army, and the grateful nation, please accept this flag as a symbol of our appreciation for your loved one's honorable and faithful service. Thank you.
Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar. Binote sheyarbitzeni al menuchot yanachaleni. Nafshi yishovev. Yanacheni v'magle tzedek lema'an shemo. Kama ki helech begitz al mavet. Lo ira ki atai mahdi. Shivtecha umishantecha hema yenachamoni. Ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged surirai. Tishanta vashemen roshi kosi revaya. Ach tov chesed yirdifuni kol yamei chayai b'shaviti b'veit Adonai le'orach yamim. I have chanted for you the words of our 23rd Psalm. As we face difficult and challenging times, we also turn to the psalmist for inspiration and for comfort. And so I ask you now, if you wish, to please join me in these words. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember him. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will remember him. In the opening buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will remember him. In the blueness of sky and in the warmth of summer, we will remember him. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember him. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we will remember him. When we are weary and in need of strength, we will remember him. And when we are lost and sick at heart, we will remember him. When we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember him. For as long as we live, he too will live. For he is now a part of us, as we remember Abram Edelsburg. To his sister Doris, his nephew Irving, his great-nephew and great-niece Ben and Judith, his great-great-nephews and niece Jacob, Gabriel, and Julia, and to the rest of the family and also very dear and cherished friends who join us here today. We've come together to remember, but also to celebrate the life of your beloved Abe. We are taught by our sages that birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey, from childhood to maturity and from youth to age. From innocence to awareness, from ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom. from weakness to strength or strength to weakness, and often back again, from health to sickness, and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, and from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage to life everlasting. Abe was born in 1921 to Louis and Gussie Edelsburg. He was one of 4 children. Abe and his siblings, Julius and Lillian, both of blessed memory, and also his sister Doris, who resides at Montefiore, they all grew up in Cleveland during some of the most difficult and challenging years in our nation's history. And while there are many details about his childhood that we do not know, I do know that when his cousin Albert came to this country from Poland in 1949, that Al and some of his family members moved into Abe's home for a short while, just a few weeks. And that, Al, when you came over, your given name of Avram, of Abram, you were told that there couldn't be 2 Abes in the house, so you became Abe. He grew up, and during his teen years, he enjoyed athletics. And following his graduation from John Hay High School, Abe went into the workforce. He was a coil winder, and we believe that this was probably for the war effort. And we understand that he had this job because of his Army discharge papers stating that he did this before he went in to serve. And it was in January of 1944 that Abe enlisted in the United States Army. And this chapter of his life really proved to be very important to Abe. And it became a part of his journey which held great meaning to him. Abe wanted to serve our country so much so that he lied about his height. He told the recruiter he was 5'1", because that's so tall. But he was actually under 5 foot. It turned out, though, that his smaller frame provided that Abe was able to be swift and nimble, and this was helpful to him, especially in times of combat. He was trained as a teletype operator, and when he arrived in the European theater, he found himself in an infantry unit, the 9th Division, 47th Infantry Regiment of the F Company, and he saw combat in Germany, so much so that he was awarded 11 decorations. 2 of those, one was the Bronze Star, which he was awarded for valor, for bravery, and the other a Purple Heart for wounds that he received in Germany on March 13th, 1945. When the war ended, he remained in Germany as a teletype operator for the Army of Occupation. And then Abe received an honorable discharge in May of 1946. He returned to Cleveland, and he went to work for the Postal Service, and this is where he worked for the vast majority of his life. But with all the years that he worked, and with all the years he was blessed to live, I'm assured by his great-nephew Ben and his great-niece Judith that those 2 years in the Army really meant the most to him. Judith, it was you who said those 2 years defined him. He was, in every way, very military. He worked out regularly, kept barbells near his bed. He was organized, on time, and throughout his life, he made his bed with those military corners that most of us cannot master. He was always interested in veterans' affairs, and he was always interested in the ethical treatment of animals. And these were two causes that Abe contributed to regularly. He also contributed his time and his energy and his love in caring for his sister Doris. He was very devoted to his sister. And the two of them were housemates for almost 20 years. And when Doris was facing so many health challenges, it was Abe who was devoted. It was Abe who was helping to arrange her appointments, making sure her bills were paid. And then when she finally moved to Montefiore, he would visit her often. Ben, I know you had a special relationship with your uncle. It was special and it was unique, and it was one that you worked hard to keep intact. And we know that your uncle would have celebrated his 95th birthday in just a matter of days on December 20th. And what a blessing for Abe. Up until the end of his very days, this man, nearly 95 years old, was living independently. He still drove his car. He did his own shopping. He did his own cleaning. Ben, you wanted him to find someone. You wanted to help him find someone to assist. But he was a little bit stubborn, maybe a lot stubborn. He was proud, and he was dignified. We're taught that words which come from our heart enter directly to the heart. And Ben, I know that at this time you have some words in your heart that you want to share with all of us.
Thank you. I was so pleased when we came into the chapel and I saw so many people that I've not met before. And it's wonderful that you're here and honoring Abe's memory. Relatives I had never met before, friends. And I want you to know that we all appreciate you taking the time to come here. And I met the other Uncle Abe. I have known Abe all my life, but in a lot of ways I didn't really know him that well because, as you all know, he was a very private person. And I feel like in the past day and a half I've gotten to learn more about him just by looking through papers that he had saved in his apartment. One thing I learned is that he cared a lot about veterans' causes and law enforcement support and animal rights, and he supported them financially, and he was very committed to those causes. But I also learned he's very meticulous and a terrific record keeper. And it just occurred to me that he struggled to make sense of an increasingly nonsensical world. And his way of confronting that was by keeping records. I just want to share two quick items that we found. One was a piece of paper in Abe's wallet that was typed some time ago, and it's a quote attributed to Thomas Jefferson. And I'll read it to you, and maybe you can think about why Abe would be carrying this. But I want to share it with you. A pessimist is one who feels bad when he feels good. For fear, he'll feel worse when he feels better. Enigmatic. The other thing I wanted to share, to me, just is an instance of Abe taking complex events in the world and trying to find something tangible that he can relate to his own personal experience, to kind of anchor what a disorderly world he was finding himself in. So what led to this is I found a photo of his John Hay wrestling team. This photo, wrapped in paper. And at first I thought the paper was really just protecting the photo in some way. But then I looked at the article, and he had underlined a portion of the article. And the article was from a plain dealer issue in 1983 when, 93 when the Holocaust Museum opened in Washington. And it turns out that amidst the ceremonies, there were some protesters gathered behind a Confederate flag denying that the Holocaust ever happened. One of these protesters was quoted, and it was that quote that Abe had underlined. And the person quoted, Jerome Brentar of Cleveland, said, "I object to the lies, exaggerations, and distortions which this museum represents." Which brought me back to the photo of his high school wrestling team, because on the back are all the wrestlers on the team, and one of the wrestlers is the gentleman whose name was underlined in the newspaper. Which to me is an example of Abe, like most of us, trying to make sense of things that don't really make sense, and finding something in his own life that he can relate to sort of tangibly anchor those things. I'll leave you with what I have learned from my Uncle Abe. He made choices about how he was going to live his life that are different than the choices that I made about how to live my life. And when I was younger, I dismissed his choices because mine were obviously so much better. But now, I think that life doesn't come with an instruction manual. And so I realize that there's no one answer. There's no right way to live a life. And that's what I've learned from my uncle. Goodbye. I love you.
The mysteries of life and death are beyond human understanding. We are perplexed and overwhelmed when pain and anguish befall those whom we love. In sorrow, confronted by death, which has taken Abram Edelsburg from our midst, we feel our own frailty. Like delicate flowers, we flourish only for a day. Eternal God, Shepherd of Israel, guide us, your flock, with love and with compassion. If in our grief and desolation we stray from you, do not abandon us, but draw us closer to you. Grant solace and comfort unto those who mourn, and may their lives together help to sustain them and add to the blessing which is theirs in the memory of the life of their beloved Abe. In the valley of the shadow of death, and beside the still waters, and in the green pastures, you, God, you are our shepherd. Be our strength and our shield, our stay and our comfort throughout all of our days. And let us answer, Amen. Friends, our service will continue with the internment at Mount Olive Cemetery. Anyone who is considering making a donation in memory of Abe, the family has suggested that you might consider People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. That is easily found at www.peta.org. As we ask God now to accept Abe's soul, as you're able, I ask you to please rise for El Malei Rachamim. El Malei Rachamim, shochen bamromim, המשימנוך נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים, את נשמת אברהם ראובן, בן לייבל וגיטל, שהלך לעולמו בגן עדן, תהא מנוחתו. אנא ברחמים אסתירהו, בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, ותטרוד בטרוד החיים את נשמתו. אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר Amen. O merciful God, who dwells on high, who is full of compassion, grant perfect rest beneath the shelter of your divine presence among the holy and pure, who shine as the brightness of the firmament. To our dear departed Abram Edelsburg, who has gone now to his eternal home, may Abe's soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Grant that his memory inspire all of us to noble and consecrated living. Amen. On behalf of the family, we thank you for being here on this sad but very important day.